I think there's a reason why women are more likely to suffer from autoimmune disease. There's been a lot of studies that have come out about silent suffering that women do as a way to appease, to
be a good mom.
Yeah, to make
wife.
themselves small. And I think that is physically, mentally, emotionally affecting women.
What if your chronic fatigue, your autoimmune symptoms, even your people pleasing, they weren't just random? Right? What if they were your body remembering something that your mind forgot? Well, in today's episode, I sit down with Brittany Piper. She's a somatic experiencing practitioner, trauma educator for the Department of Justice and U.S. military, and a survivor of complex trauma who turned her pain into purpose. She's helped thousands uncover the real root of chronic symptoms, not with another pill, but with healing the nervous system itself. This conversation is really going to blow your mind because it's going to change the way that you look at illness, trauma, and healing. Why chronic illness like fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease, and even cancer may be tied to repressed emotions. Why most people pleasers are just silently angry, and how that blocks your life force. And why traditional talk therapy might not be enough, and how somatic work actually rewires the nervous system. And we also learn how Brittany healed from addiction, disconnection, and even sexual assault through nervous system repair. And she tells us about this incredible moment where her 5-year-old son shuts down on the dance floor, and what it reveals about how early we lose our wholeness. Brittany goes into her #1 tip for helping emotionally unavailable men reconnect with themselves, and how we can raise emotionally healthy boys in a world that teaches them how to shut down. You're going to walk away with the practical and body tools to reconnect to your body, your truth, and your vital force. Starting today, if you ever felt stuck in therapy, stuck with your symptoms, stuck in survival mode, this is the episode you've been waiting for. Let us dive in. All right, everyone, welcome to this new episode of Heal Thyself. I have a very special guest. She's making me call her Britt. Her full name is Brittany Piper. And this is someone who is so deeply passionate about trauma, somatics, nervous system, moving through things, the body's ability to heal from it, coming back to regulation, all the things that you're seeing. We're going to talk about motherhood because you got 2 kids. We're going to talk about really moving through these deep inner workings that kind of are holding back a lot of our health, mental and physical. And we're just going to really, for me, this is the most exciting stuff I talk about. So what an honor to have you here. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of your work. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of you doing what you love, and I know it. And reading the questionnaire I sent you, I know you're really doing what you love. So we're going to get deep here too.
Yeah.
I have a thing that I do, and it's just a quick regulation grounding.
Okay.
Are you down?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Feet on the floor. It's only going to be a few minutes, but a few minutes goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
And viewers and listeners, I know you've been having a busy day. What a moment to close your eyes and just feel your feet on the ground. It's nice to stop, right? So for those of you sitting down, feeling your butt on the seat, feeling the weight of your feet on the ground. Maybe your back is resting somewhere. If you're standing, just really focusing on the feet and noticing the points where your body is just kind of just grounded and resting. As we allow ourselves, our body to just relax, the muscles of the arms, chest, belly, relax. The legs, the toes, the knees, the calves, finally relaxing. The spine, the back, the throat, relaxing, and our face, letting go of the tension that we hold in our face, relaxing, coming back to ourselves and our body. As we take a gentle breath through the nose into the belly, breathe in, and breathe out through the nose. Gentle breath in. Noticing the environment and our body at the same time. Breathe out. Can you stay grounded with noise around you? Breathe in. Full belly, breathe out. Feeling your feet, feeling your butt. One more deep breath. And breathe out. Checking in with the body one more time, just noticing how we feel, where we feel open, where we feel tense, and that's okay. Slowly opening the eyes. Coming back to the room that you're in. We come back to the podcast. Britt, hi. How did that feel?
Good.
Good. Grounding.
Yeah.
Even if we work in the space, we need this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Kind of we forget sometimes, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you. Feels nice. I needed it. And I just did it.
You.
I just did it like 2 hours ago and I needed it. I didn't even know it. Okay. I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna, whatever comes through and what I wrote down. And I really just real quick. Ready? Could chronic health issues be rooted in the suppression of your emotions or dysregulation of your nervous system?
Yes.
Okay. What is one of the most common chronic diseases that you see is a function of that?
What I'm seeing a lot lately, more as a symptom, is chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. That's what I'm seeing a lot in my clients. Yeah.
Are people pleasers angry?
Oh, I want to go deep, but I know this is rapid fire.
We're going to go into it later.
Secretly, yes.
Secretly angry.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's nice. That's juicy.
Yeah.
That's juicy. What are men most struggling with in the context of your work?
Their emotion disconnection.
Disconnection from?
I think disconnection from emotion, disconnection from self, disconnection from other men in authentic ways. Yeah.
Can addiction be rooted in repressed emotions?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And I got one more. When we're children, are we fully expressed and open?
I'm looking at my girl who's here with me because we just talked about this.
Amazing.
Yes, I believe that we are.
Okay. All right.
And I want to add something to that later when we come back.
Okay. When we come back.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about the work that you do before we start going into everything. Let's orient ourselves.
Yeah. So my work, I think, is mainly informed by being a survivor myself. So I'm a survivor of complex trauma, developmental trauma, attachment trauma, shock trauma, sexual assault. But from a professional lens, I am a somatic experiencing practitioner, trained in polyvagal theory as well, trained at the Polyvagal Institute. And I'm trained in somatic attachment work, somatic internal family systems, all this wonderful, magical pot of modalities that really helped me in my recovery. And then I'm also a trauma educator. So I do forensic neurobiology trainings for the military, Department of Justice. I work a lot with violent crimes units and helping them to understand how trauma lives within the body and the brain, because that's really important when it comes to recovery and investigative procedures. And then I'm a sexual violence prevention educator as well. So I've been doing that since 2012.
Yeah. When you look at the whole of everything, right? And I'm listening to what you just said. You mentioned you're a survivor of your own complex trauma. When people hear the word trauma, and I know you talk about this on so many podcasts, but we really want to orient ourselves. When people hear the word trauma and complex trauma, sometimes they're mistaken.
Yeah.
How do you define both?
Yeah. So trauma, the lens through which I speak is more of that somatic, that body-based lens. I believe that trauma at a surface level is disconnection from self and disconnection from the self that we were meant to be before survival mode kicked in. And from kind of a clinical science perspective, trauma, I believe, is any experience that overwhelms the nervous system. and that creates the nervous system becoming stuck in a stress response cycle. And so healing then is about rediscovering again, who was I supposed to be before I got stuck in this survival mode?
Yeah. Do you think that who we were supposed to be was fully present when we were kids and then kind of shut down? Like, where is that first original sin of survival mode?
Yeah. Well, I think it's different for everyone, but the reason I said bring me back to the fully expressed question is because I was just having a conversation before I came here about how at the very end of my book, in the conclusion, I talk about how I feel like healing is kind of like the curious case of Benjamin Button, where we tumble backward in life and we try to get back to this sense of wholeness that we had when we were maybe in the womb or before life fragmented us and trauma fragmented us and hardship and this sense of not belonging. And that's what I've learned a lot in my healing, and what I've found and what I've witnessed in others is that it's the sense of who was I meant to be before all this, can I curse? Before all this shit happened, right? And so what I talked about in the conclusion is that when I was writing the book, my kids were still at that age, and they still are kind of, where they're very free spirited, they're not hardened by the world yet. And I was sharing with Ellie, who's here with us. I was sharing with Ellie about how last month we went to this little outing as a family, and there was picnic tables. We were eating. It was kind of like an outdoor restaurant, but there was live music, and all these kids were dancing out in the open area. And my son, who's about to be 5, Noah, I'm like, hey, buddy, go dance, because he's a good little dancer. He loves dancing. And he goes out and he puts his hands in his pocket, and he kind of starts to hide on the dance floor. And he's just like shuffling his feet. His gaze is down. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's hiding. Like he's hiding in plain sight. I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about it. And so I went out with him. I'm like, I'll dance with him, to make him feel more comfortable. And he started crying and he said, I'm afraid. And I said, what are you afraid of? He said, people are watching.
Wow.
And so I don't know that it's necessarily trauma, but at some point we all reach this perspective that we lose this sense of wholeness, right? And we start to condition ourselves and make ourselves small. And for everyone that comes from a different place. And I just find it kind of sad, but in a lot of my healing, I think what's been the most profound is, again, the getting back to those younger parts and like trying to incorporate play and innocence and expression and all of those kind of childlike qualities that we had at some point. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but yeah.
And for me, it's interesting to hear that a child at the age of 5, already those conditioning start early on.
Yeah.
I thought it comes down a little bit later. I'm not a parent, but like it comes down a little bit later, but it's already starting. And I'm sure that.
Well, but for me, it even started earlier.
Yeah. So it did. Okay. So it's variable.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that you, with your awareness and all of your know-how and tools, that you've set up a home very sensitive to raising a child in a traumatic household.
Yeah.
And so are there things outside of the home that have informed your child to be scared to dance already, and being seen and watched, and maybe shame being felt? Because it's crazy then, because we can't control everything.
Yeah.
But do you, in that moment of your child not being able to dance or not wanting to dance because he had felt fear or shame, do you foresee that, or have you seen that be a function of something outside of him?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it comes from exactly. I don't know that I have an answer for it. He goes to school twice a week, and he's just there for a few hours every day. I'm going to start, next year he starts kindergarten, and he'll be going to a hybrid school, which is like he'll be homeschooled for part of the week with me, and then he'll go to school. But I would assume that it probably comes from the time that he's with his peers.
Yeah.
A lot of kids these days are being raised by their peer groups, because we live in a culture and a society where it is survival of the fittest from a financial perspective, for a home perspective. It's hard to have a single income house. And so kids are around other kids all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that pressure starts. I certainly don't want it to be felt within my home, but I don't know. I don't know when that conditioning starts out in the social constructs of kiddos.
I wonder if it's part of just like brainwaves changing.
Yeah.
From when they were younger, and they're just coming into their ego.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be part of that experience.
Well, and they have what they call a limbic leap at the age of 4. And so he's, I remember, he was always kind of our calm, cool, collected kid. Shia, on the other hand, she's got a lot of energy. She's got a lot of attitude, a lot of emotion. And, but at about 4.5, Noah started having just these, big tears. And of course we welcomed them, but I was so curious. I'm like, where is this coming from? Is it school? What is it? And yeah, they have something called the limbic leap, which is where the emotional part of their brain really starts to take over. Also at the age of 4, there's a huge surge in testosterone for boys. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that maybe has something to do with it too. Yeah.
This is when they're like really rough housing.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yep. He loves his superheroes. He loves all that.
Yeah. They become real boys.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'm a believer that early life pain can alchemize a lot of really potent purpose.
Yeah.
And to me, I see on the outside looking in, you're very purposeful in your work.
Yeah.
But it comes from pain. Some people, God bless, have really good families, and life has, they haven't really experienced left and right and up and down. It's just been going, flowing. And then they feel purposeful. I think that's really rare.
Yeah.
So for you've gone through multiple experiences. Would you mind kind of just highlighting what those experiences were like, what they brought out of you?
Yeah.
Maybe in the years after, and then as you became an adult, more aware, more balanced, what was the gift in all of that? Hey everyone, I want to talk about something we rarely think about, but impacts us more than anything else, and it's the air we breathe. Did you know that we breathe over 11,000 liters of air every single day? That is way more than 3 liters of water that we drink and the food we eat. But here's something that blew my mind. Most of our homes are basically working against our health. I know that sucks to hear. They're built for cost efficiency, but not human efficiency. The materials in your home are still off-gassing while you're living there, and most HVAC systems are not properly designed for optimal air quality. This is where Jasper comes in. They are focused on something I've become passionate about, and that's turning your home into a sanctuary for your health. You start with your air that you breathe, always. Think about it. We obsess over organic foods and filtered water, but we don't think about the thing that we consume the most, and that's air. Poor air quality affects everything from your sleep to your energy levels. Jasper partnered with Aura and saw that one of their clients, when they got a Jasper, their score jumped from 61 to 91 on their sleep overnight after optimizing their air. That's life-changing sleep. So if you're ready to transform your home's air quality and feel the difference, visit jasper.co/DRG. That's JASPR.co/DRG and use the code DRG to get $300 off for a limited time. I want to talk about something crucial for your health, your vascular system. Did you know that your vascular health underpins everything in your body? From how vibrant your skin looks to how well your organs and muscles function, it's all about healthy blood flow. But here's the thing, factors like stress, sugar, and even natural aging can damage the delicate endothelial glycocalyx. That's where our friends at Calroy come in. They have a product called Arterial Sil HP. It's the only supplement with Monotum RS. It is a unique seaweed-derived ingredient specifically shown to restore the endothelial glycocalyx. They also have a product called Viscanox HP, which provides nitric oxide support for up to 24 hours, helping your blood vessels relax and deliver blood where it's most needed. And right now, Calroy is offering a special deal exclusively for you, the Heal Thyself listener. Head over to calroy.com/DRG and you're gonna save $50 when you purchase Viscanox or the Arterial Sil bundle. Plus, you'll get a free canister of 2-in-1 nitric oxide test strips with a 3-pack bundle purchase. Visit calroy.com/DRG. That is CALROY.com/DRG.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say maybe the first experience that's probably informed a lot of who I was for a long time, who I am today, is actually more so my birth story. And it's interesting because I didn't know about my birth story until I was 15 years old. But subconsciously, I always knew there was like, what happened to me? I always felt different. So my mom was a young mom when she was a child raising children. She had my brother when she was, I think, 16, 17. And then she had me when she was 19. But she was homeless and on her own when I was in the womb, living off of food stamps, her and my brother living in her car. And so I know that kind of experience was certainly something that was experienced by my nervous system as well. And I learned a lot in writing my book. There were a lot of long overdue conversations that my mom and I had in writing my book. I learned a lot about what that time was like for her. She didn't want to accept the fact that she was pregnant with me. She had considered adoption. And it wasn't until she was 8 months pregnant that she said, I accepted that I was having you as a child. So up until that point, she hadn't gone to any doctor's appointments. She hadn't done anything that, typically you do when you're pregnant. And so when I was born, they drew some blood tests because she hadn't gone to see a doctor, and they found methamphetamine in our system. So I was forcibly removed from my mother's care. I was put into foster care while she kind of got her life back on track. And by the grace of my grandparents' help, they took us in. But I know that imprint, and what I know now as a, somatic experiencing practitioner, that body memory sticks with you, and body memory starts to form at 7 weeks in the womb. And so although I might not consciously remember as a conscious being, like I don't remember being in the womb, I don't remember coming out, I don't explicitly remember being in someone else's care and away from my mother, but my body always remembered, and it always remembered how it felt. And that left an imprint on me, an imprint of not feeling good enough, not feeling like I belonged. And there were I was very self-critical, always seeking approval, and although I had my mother physically back in my life growing up, she was emotionally detached and then poured herself into her career. And so her job always came before her kids, and she admits that to this day, and that's okay. But I don't think that as a young child, I received the nurturing that I needed. And so that kind of sets the stage for, I didn't know all of that until I was 15. I had no idea that had happened. And I think that was a hard story for her to tell. So it makes sense. But then my brother passed away when I was 16, my older brother. And we were like best friends, thick as thieves. And so that was like, to my knowledge, that was my first experience of trauma. I didn't consider the thing that happened at my birth as traumatic. And then when I was 20, I was sexually assaulted. I was sexually assaulted by a stranger who helped me change my flat tire. And then there was a 2-year grueling trial process that was probably worse than the assault itself. He was ultimately sentenced to 60 years. Wow. But that was kind of the turning point where I took what happened to me and I was like, I'm going to make something of this. And so at the time I was in college for computer science, which I hated, but I'm like, I don't know, we'll just go with this, And so I switched majors to women's studies, gender-based violence prevention, and photojournalism. And so that work took me overseas for a few years to work in rape crisis and trauma centers. And then I became a professional speaker, sharing my story alongside the detectives and the people who worked my case. However, I realized that doing that work at the beginning was really just a way for me to stay stuck in survival mode and dissociated from what I wasn't ready to face. And I realized that when I remember working in South Africa for a time, and I would leave work. I was working with the Rape Crisis Center of South Africa. I would leave work and buy alcohol on the way home. And then I would just drink myself to blackout. And so it's like I'm on the other side of the world acting kind of like, I'm using air quotes here, Mother Teresa. But I had no capacity to be with my own pain, although I was trying to be with others' pain. And so that was a bit of a wake-up call that I needed to come home. So yeah.
And then you came home.
And then I came home and I realized that I had a lot of healing to do. That's kind of where the somatic therapy came in. And yeah, the work that I do now, it's much less from a place of, and I also too, I will say this, and I write about this in the book. I do think that I had made my career my identity as a way to find validation and belonging, because I had so desperately missed that in a lot of my other, a lot of my life. And so, yeah, I think when I unraveled myself from who am I outside of my career and do I have worth, that was a lot of the inner journey that I had to take. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's hit left and right. You again hit left and right. That's a lot of stuff. And I love that you mentioned how we don't think about our birth story. It's part of my questionnaire with clients and a lot of them are like, oh, I don't know really, but it matters.
Yeah.
It actually matters energetically and even in a way physically, chemically, right? Like the way you're coming out into this world, and how important that is for like the stories we carry when we're kids and not even knowing like where that came from.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've turned that into purpose, but there was a lot of rough patches. There's viewers and listeners out there going, okay, I definitely resonate with that. I've gone through some stuff, and I've been talking with my talk therapist. We've talked a lot, but I haven't fully gotten better. Why? What's happening there? Because therapy is, everyone goes, you need therapy. You have traumas and this work to do.
Yeah.
But what's going on? Why do people still kind of stuck and stagnant?
Yeah, I think it's just because we're stuck and stagnant in the old ways of doing things.
Yeah.
They say it takes 15 to 20 years for, science to catch up in the medical mainstream practice. Yeah. And I had been in and out of therapy for many years on lots of different medications, and it was helpful. However, I kept falling into these cycles of, and my cycles were extreme alcohol abuse, pill dependence, eating disorders. I ended up in a jail cell because of an alcohol-related incident. I ended up in a hospital bed because of an alcohol-related incident. And so I would get better and then I would get worse. And I would get better and I'd get worse. And I was stuck in these cycles of self-sabotage, but really I just know it was self-protection. And the reason why just talking about it wasn't helping is because my nervous system was still stuck in the story of the past. It's like consciously my brain knew that those traumas and those events were over, but my nervous system hadn't caught up yet to the present. And so in somatic experiencing, we work to help our clients to come out of that stress response cycle. Peter Levine talks about, I don't know exactly how the quote goes, but essentially how trauma is a devastating moment that becomes frozen in time. And it's this internal straitjacket that he talks about. And that straitjacket is the nervous system still stuck in the survival of the past. And the nervous system doesn't operate through cognition or talking through things or thinking through things. It operates through subconscious, subcortical, somatic, language, emotion, feeling, sensation, impulse. However, I do think that a combination approach when it comes to trauma can be really helpful, because we're a whole system. We're a holistic system, mind, body, spirit, soul. And so I wouldn't say that just doing somatic work could be enough for some people. And of course, everyone, as we know, is going to be different. So
Yeah. I love that you've highlighted that, right? Because we can talk about it, but it's not, it's sub. It's sub. It's not, we're not talking just to the brain, to the mind. We're talking deeper.
Yes.
Subconscious. The body, you said, is stuck in this past experience, manifesting in the present moment. So for people who are viewing and listening, go, okay, that resonates. I've been talking to a therapist. I've been getting better, but I've been kind of in this cycle still too. I have a feeling it's in my body. What do you say if they go, okay, well, right now, today, I just want to start getting an idea. Is there anything that people can start doing at home to start really kind of feeling into if that's a truth for them?
Yeah. So I think it would be starting to notice patterns. So we work a lot with body memory, implicit memory, but more specifically procedural patterns in somatic experiencing. And procedural patterns, you can kind of think of it like muscle memory, or the habitual ways that the body or the nervous system responds to things without us thinking about it. So for instance, when someone raises their voice, even if they're just shouting at the TV at that football match, and all of a sudden your shoulders are caving in, you're hiding, your eyes go down, or your heart starts to, jump out of your chest, that's memory. And that was learned somewhere. That was a pattern. You're having a physiological, very natural response to a stimulus that your nervous system is remembering from the past. But what often happens is we'll get stuck and guided by these patterns that no longer serve us. So things that you can start to do is just notice the patterns of your body, just day to day. And these are patterns of activation. So, I'm bracing, or I'm holding my breath, or my stomach is in knots again, or I'm having that migraine, or I'm clenching my jaw, I'm holding my shoulders up, or I feel really numb and spacey. That's likely patterns. And those are some of the, Bessel in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, he says that trauma doesn't always come back as a memory, it comes back as a reaction. And he's talking about those reactions of the body. And so by working with the body, that means that we don't necessarily always have to work with the memory of trauma in order to heal. We don't have to go back to the hurt in order to heal. Just noticing the patterns, I think, would be good. And then starting to have an interoceptive or an internal awareness of your body's language. So many of us are kind of living life from the head up, and we're very detached from this wonderful system, this wonderful body that we have. And so just noticing things like, how is my body showing me I need to go to the bathroom today? How is my body showing me I'm thirsty? How is my body telling me that I actually want to say yes to that thing that my boss is asking me to do? Oh, wait, my body's actually telling me no, right? So I think starting to also track just your own somatic language can be helpful too.
It's literally coming back. It's funny because I'm thinking about a little kid, and they know all that. We don't have to teach them. They just do it. They only know how to do it.
Yeah.
So we're getting back to the Benjamin Button timeline of healing. And actually like, what does my body feel like today, and how am I reacting to that loud sound, or to, this overwhelm of work, or my boss saying X, Y, or Z to me, what's true for me or what's not.
Yeah.
And you said to track it, really just being aware of how it looks day to day. That's building the interoception, you call it.
Yeah.
Building that interoception, really that connection to your body. We opened talking about men, and I've done some men's work. You just got off a men's work call today when you walked in.
Yeah.
We're doing one in New England in October. Okay. And the men are interoception. We're talking about like,
tell me about it.
Yeah, but it's so crazy because these men have such high IQ.
Yeah.
They're so successful in their work and their business, and they have like really below average body IQ.
Yeah.
Really below average.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in relationships, and they want to get their man to open up. But he can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
He can't think of what he needs to do. Would then you say the first step is building that interoception and coming authentically from that space?
I think that would be a really great place to start.
Building the interoception.
I think it's impossible to get someone to speak your language, an emotional language, if they don't have that language for themselves first. Right? That is very much my husband. And it's a language we've had to learn together. He's not big with his emotions. He's not big with what do I feel in my body right now. So of course, when I bring it up, he's like, don't therapize me, take that somewhere else. But I think that would be a really good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's first just noticing what you feel in the body, because there's what you're doing is you're bringing an explicit or a conscious awareness to the subconscious experience without having to make sense of it yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because what might often happen is, a partner might be like, well, what are you feeling? And why do you feel that way? And first they just need to know what the feeling is before they can make sense of it or be able to express it.
For all the moms and dads listening who have little boys. And they go, okay, I'm going to break this generational thing, right? Especially the dads out there. They go, I don't want it to be like I grew up.
Yeah.
What steps can we take right now with our children, our little boys, to make sure that we do everything the best we can for them to grow up and actually be emotionally available?
Yeah. I think validating their emotions first and foremost is key. So with Noah, and this was a lot of trial and error. We're not going to get this perfect for sure, especially for me growing up in an environment where emotions, we just didn't show our emotions, right? We throw everything under the rug. But first of all, it's validating or just noticing that they have emotions or they're feeling something without the need to fix it. Right? Often it's like, oh, you're feeling angry. Well, and then we go to, well, let's do this to make the anger go away. Or you're crying. What can I do to make you feel better? We don't need to villainize emotions. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. And our children are so incredibly wise. They're very resilient. And the body knows how to move in and out of emotions and activating moments. And I think as parents, we often interrupt what they already know how to do. And so I think it's just giving space for the emotion to be experienced, right? So yeah, you're feeling angry. I'd feel angry too. Can we just be with that for a minute? And I feel like I'm with like a client in an SE session. Is that okay to be here? Instead of being like, what do we need to do to get rid of it? Right? Because when you start to send, it's like, I recently was talking about the term anxiety attack. When I'm having an anxiety attack, it's like we're creating this internal sense or this conscious sense that my anxiety is attacking me. No, your anxiety, you're just having an anxious response, which is very natural. But when we start to, again, villainize or make our emotions the thing that we have to war against, it creates more of those emotions, or it creates this sense of shutdown or withdraw. So I think, yeah, that would be step number one, is let them feel it. And then see if the body naturally knows what to do. So oftentimes, I'll let Noah be with an emotion. I'll be like, is there anything you want to do with that? And if he's angry, he might just be like, right? Like kind of like cross his shoulders, like pout, or like he'll usually do fist clenches and be like, and shake his, his jaw tenses up. I'm like, yeah, that's a postural response of your fight, your healthy aggression. We're not throwing things. We're not punching things. We're not doing anything that is, behaviorally not acceptable, but we're allowing the body to take on a stance of that emotion and allow it to move through. And then once it's moved through, then we co-regulate and we talk about it. What were you feeling? What was that about? Do you have any questions? So we just kind of chat through it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's something that would be transformative for the child's own relationship to his emotions. We're talking about little boys right now. You mentioned that parents kind of disrupt this process. Why do parents disrupt the emotional process in children?
Because of their own discomfort. Yeah, because of their own inability to be with it. Their children's dysregulation dysregulates them. And they don't like that. We can only hold space for others, but we can hold space within ourselves. Which I guess then maybe step one would be learn how to have a capacity, or not learn, but start to grow that capacity within yourself to be with your own emotions. And that's actually probably the most important thing that you can do, because your child is going to mirror you and your nervous system, especially in those formative years.
What would be some red flags to look out for that parents would say when they can't hold their emotions of their children?
Well, I think that lashing out at kids, right? Making, I'm angry at you rather than I'm feeling angry, right? Making their emotions their child's responsibility. And so I would say, the lashing out.
Stop crying.
Yeah, stop crying. Exactly. Shutting things down, dismissing, their feelings, which can feel really invalidating. Some of that toxic shame, when kids they do something wrong and a parent is, why would you do that? You know better, instead of saying, hey, we don't do that, okay? I don't want you to get hurt when they reach for a hot stove.
Yeah.
Not belittling, not humiliating your children,
Mm.
and really trying not to yell, which I know for some people can be really hard. Right. So that's what the power of pausing can be really helpful.
There's so much dysregulation in households that are yelly or domestically abusive, or physically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of like the most dysregulating things to children who grow up to be adults and who are really suffering with a lot, especially their own capacity to express anger. Which brings me to the people pleasing that we spoke about when in our quick hits. I asked you, are most people pleasers angry? And you said they're silently angry.
Yeah.
And what does silently angry mean? And why don't we know that they're angry?
Yeah. So the people-pleasing tendency is really characterized by that fawn response in the nervous system. And from the polyvagal perspective, we look at the fawn response as what we call a mixed or a blended state. So it's two of one state. Or it's one of two states blended together. And so the fawn response is usually a bit of your fight or flight response mixed in with your shutdown response. And the shutdown is more like a freeze response, but we call it shutdown. And so how that shows up is there's this fear of abandonment. There's a fear of rejection. There's a fear of ruffling feathers. There's a fear of not being accepted. There's a fear of conflict or confrontation, which is that flight response. And because of that fear, we then shut down. You could say freeze, dissociate our own wants, needs, boundaries, desires. And so we people please, we placate, we pacify, we keep the peace, but we sacrifice ourselves in the process. And the reason that we do that is because we don't have access, or maybe we haven't grown that capacity to be with healthy aggression. So healthy aggression is a healthy fight response. The word aggrete in Latin means to move forward, to propel. We need healthy aggression, not to just protect and defend and set boundaries, but also to be productive in life, to have drive, passion, to go for things, to move forward. And so when we don't have that healthy aggression, either because it was extinguished or stifled in us at a young age, and that could be for a number of reasons. If we got angry as a child and we were told to push that down, right, to suppress it. If anger was used against us, we might learn that anger is a weapon and we don't use it ourselves. Or if anger was never modeled in a healthy way at all, right? Maybe we grew up in a household where we never saw conflict. It was hidden from us, but healthy conflict is necessary, right? So there's a lot of reasons why we could be detached or disconnected from this healthy aggression that we need. So people pleasing often shows up because we don't have access to that healthy aggression. And I'm saying that from personal experience because that was probably the thing I struggled with the most.
Yeah, huge one.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming then the people who are people pleasers aren't really moving forward to the level that they're kind of supposed to here in life. Like their soul wants to move forward, but they don't have that inherent aggression because they can't tap into it because it's so blocked up.
Yeah. And in the SE world, we call healthy aggression your vital life force or your life force. So I think not just in the SE world, but in a lot of places, it's your vitality.
Yeah, you're alive.
Your aliveness.
You're glowing. You're moving. You want to create in this world. Interesting.
So when you don't have it, you become dormant. And I also say, and then you also become a doormat.
Well, can you please say that again?
Yeah. When you don't have access to healthy aggression, you become dormant, and you can also become a doormat.
For everyone walking all over you.
Yeah.
And your vital force is dormant.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. I really like that one. So then wouldn't that then make anger one of the most important emotions to look at, because it's directly tied to your life force?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think in my practice, I've seen that's probably the most common emotion that is like really down there. Like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to see it at all.
And I see it a lot in women.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason why women are more likely to suffer from autoimmune disease. And There's been a lot of studies that have come out about silent suffering that women do as a way to appease, to
be a good mom,
to make
wife.
themselves small. And I think that is physically, mentally, emotionally affecting women on a large scale. I mean, I look at my own mom. She was diagnosed with breast cancer.
I was just going to ask you about cancer.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she went and saw every doctor she could, and a lot of the doctors said, you have a lot of unresolved trauma.
Doctors are saying that?
Doctors.
The oncologist.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I should have said she went the more holistic route.
Went the more holistic. Okay, I was about to say, what oncologist? Because not around me. I never heard that.
No, she fired her oncologist. And she's still battling the breast cancer. It's been about 5 years going. She's gone the holistic route the whole way through. But yeah, that was a big part of her prescription, you could say, her treatment.
Yeah. The breast, I mean, look, like I've seen a lot of people, and I've seen in those a lot of people some breast cancers. And the things that I notice in breast cancer,
grief.
Yeah, there's the anger for sure. Anger. This person is so sweet but not angry.
Yeah.
There's a grief, sexual repression. There's at least the women who came to me, there were like a lot of shame around even words around sex.
Yeah.
Like, and it happened to be religious for the wound that I saw.
Yep.
And my mom died of breast cancer.
Okay.
And
sorry,
it kind of clicked. Thank you.
Yeah.
It kind of clicked in those moments when it's like the third lady who came in like the month, and I go, what's going on with this breast cancer thing? And then it started clicking. I was like, whoa, all of these kind of flavors. And I know that in your work, you're like, hey, this person reminds me of that person, right? There's like flavors sometimes. Not everyone's the same. And I did notice those things over time.
Sure.
The anger, the grief, the sexual repression. Not to say that those are the things that drive breast cancer, because ultimately it's just this big dysregulation in the system that is affecting the immune system. So you said chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, autoimmune, and do you actually think that breast cancer or cancer is driven also by the same processes?
I believe that most disease is created by dis-ease within the body. The body being stuck in a chronic stress response, which we know impacts immune function, like you said, and every other working system in the body. Cardiovascular, respiratory, endocrine system, digestive system. I see a lot of, I'm sure you do too, a lot of digestive issues.
Big time.
Yeah. And whether it's chronic stress because of this world that we live in, or it's unresolved trauma and emotional suppression, or intergenerational trauma, I think that's really big too. It is that, again, we are living, and I said earlier, kind of this, from a surface level, trauma to me is disconnection from our authentic selves because we are stuck in some kind of survival mode.
I
when
feel
we
that.
stay armored up and stuck in that, over time, it's gonna wear and tear on the body.
Is there a commonality that you believe when people are more authentic or more de-armored that you see in the expression? Are they more giggly? Are they more creative? Do you notice a commonality that is like, yeah, we're going towards a healthy way?
I think it's self-compassion is what I see. What I see when
Self-compassion.
people, self-compassion, when people start to have less of the, it kind of goes back to the parenting thing that I said, but less of the, oh, my anxiety's here and I need to do something about it. And it's more, oh, I'm having an anxious response today. Or, oh, that I'm having a flare up today and I need to do something about it. It's, yeah, I'm having a flare up. I think it's more that self-acceptance and that self-compassion of my body's having a response. And that's okay. So again, it's less of like, what am I doing to fix myself? And more of the relationship to self starts to change.
This is really important what you just said, because I'm thinking about the people who have chronic disease and not getting better.
Yeah.
My body is having a reaction. What did you say?
Yeah, my body is having a natural response.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Which can be hard to believe,
Right,
right?
right. Because
Yeah.
people who are stuck in this chronic disease loop will go, oh, I need a new doctor, or oh, I need
Yes.
I need the new supplement, or I need this new really expensive modality.
Mm-hmm.
Chronically looking for
The
answers.
fix. Yeah.
So like even when you say that to me, my body feels very at ease. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, it sometimes for better or for worse, it's kind of sucky knowing the body.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like if my right toe starts itching, but it hurts at the same time, I go itching and hurts. And then I'm going down this. I was like, can it be this? Can it be this? Can it be this? And then it's like, how do you fix it?
Mm-hmm.
That's immediately like
what do I do about it?
What do I do about it?
Yep.
But wow, I'm like, well, maybe my body's just having a process, and
Yeah.
and I feel that. So I'm hoping the viewers and listeners kind of feel into that, like, and it's okay. What a beautiful ... And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
To really feel into that.
And if that feels like too much, because, you know, we see a lot of chronic symptoms, syndromes, Lyme, right?
Big
Mold.
Time. Mold. Yeah. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. And it can feel debilitating. And so, you know, I just had this the other day, and I have a program that I've been running since 2018. It's called the Body First Healing Program. And whenever our group calls, you know, just people sharing about chronic symptoms and the desperation that's there. And it does feel desperate. Like I've been living in this body for so long. My body is not for me. You know, you say my body is for me, but it feels like it's against me.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's a certain sense of urgency of, I don't want to feel like this. And that is so valid. And it makes so much sense when you've been living in pain or disconnection for so long, you know, withdrawal, fatigue. And so that's why I love internal family systems, because you can bring it into the language of, instead of saying, and that's okay, it's, and can that be okay for a moment?
Yeah.
Just for a moment, can that be okay? But again, I think that what I have found the most in this work is recognizing that our body has always had the answers.
Yeah.
And we're often seeking outside of ourselves for the answers, not realizing that, again, we came into this world whole with everything that we need. We are a self-organizing system. You know, nature would not give us anything that it didn't already have the solution to heal. I truly believe that. Now, of course, can modern medicine and things help? Yeah. But I don't know. I just always look to the natural world. And when things happen in the natural world, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's, you know, nature always comes back stronger, it regenerates, and the body's kind of the same way.
Yeah.
That might sound wishy-washy saying out loud, and someone who's like, I can't even get out of bed today, and you just want me to, like, you know, have that mentality. But it's just, and I think that's, again, where parts work is like, can a part of me feel that, yes, I'm anxious today, or I'm feeling that anxiousness in my chest? But can another part of me also feel hope? And can I feel that in the softening of my shoulders, or the deep breath that I just took? And so we're just looking for moments where we can connect back to, there's ease, there's settling, there's the de-armoring that can happen.
Yeah.
You know,
can you, and thank you for sharing that, because it can really give a lot of people hope.
Yeah.
You know, truly, right? Especially the ones in chronic disease. And you mentioned some of those. Can you share with us a successful client story that to you is like, whoa, I did not know this work can actually help something like this, when you were really blown away and surprised?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've worked with, I would say more of the syndromal experiences, the chronic experiences that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So when people are struggling from things like mold or Lyme, what can happen over time is that the brain can get stuck in alarm, right? And I had one person in particular who had atrophy of the cerebellum because their amygdala was so rapid fire all the time, and the amygdala is the threat center. So kind of think of it like your security alarm, and it was going off all the time. But their Lyme and their mold tests came back that there was nothing there anymore, but they still had all of these symptoms in the body. Bedridden, couldn't get out. And it was less about doing trauma work, and it was more about just creating moments of safety where instead of tracking, what are my symptoms today? Is my stomach upset? Is this food going to upset me? Do I have a migraine? What are all, we start to track, and the brain looks for danger internally and externally. Instead, we started to rewire their awareness to what's an area of my body that feels easier to be with. Even in this moment where I'm feeling my stomach is in knots again after eating that one thing, can I notice my spine feels soft? Can I notice my head lean back and I'm able to yield in my head and just let go of the brain, let go of the top of my spine? And so those little moments where they start to track letting go in the hands and the arms, over time that started to minimize the symptoms. Then we started to get into the trauma work, which probably happened after about 6 months or so. And that was more so just being with some of the emotions that they felt they had suppressed in the past because of abuse, which was anger. Always comes back to anger. And so just growing a smaller capacity, just starting small, gentle, tolerable. What's a moment recently that you felt frustrated or pissed off? Well, I felt frustrated when the person was mowing the lawn at 7 a.m. and I had already had insomnia. And, I just like, oh, you woke me up and I was trying to sleep. And yeah, as you're saying that, what do you notice in your body? And it's like, wow, I'm feeling heat. I'm feeling clenching. I'm feeling sweating. And it's like, oh, and it feels safe to be with. Right. So it's like these small moments where we were doing the work, and over time, this person was then able to start going outside of their house, getting out of bed. And by going outside, I mean going outside and just being on the front patio, being on the front porch. Like, we're not aiming for, hey, I've been bedridden for the longest time and now I'm out living life normally. But it was these small steps over time that were just really remarkable to see. I think more so what stands out to me is just how gentle it was. It didn't ever feel overwhelming. So yeah, I think those are probably the moments that stick out the most.
Yeah. And how long did that process take for this person?
We worked together for probably about a year to get to that place. Yeah. And I think, I recently had to have a conversation with someone who had chronic symptoms and about realistic expectations. I think what we're seeing a lot in the somatic space, I'm not sure if you see this, is when people are like, hey, can we just release the trauma and can I go?
Yeah.
It's like,
like if I scream, will everything be better?
Right. Yeah. And although that would be really nice, that would be really overwhelming for the nervous system and for the body, and would probably just send us right back into even deeper symptoms. And so, that titration of those small, tolerable steps really do go a long way in stretching the nervous system back into safety and not further stressing it. So yeah, I think, just setting people's realistic expectations that it can take time and that that's okay. Yeah.
For people who are like really feeling this, they're like, oh, well, hold on. I feel like, how do we know if we're holding in that trauma in our body? Is it tension? Is it pain? Is it like chronic headaches, but like every time I go to the neurologist, they say nothing's wrong with you, or there's no issue with my spine? Like, is that what it is? Like chronic issues, physical, even mental?
So it could definitely be chronic physical issues that you really notice, tension patterns, bracing, pain points, fatigue, but it could also be feeling nothing and being so consumed in your mind. I often say the brain spins so that the body doesn't have to feel. If you feel nothingness in life, if you feel numb, that numb to me, and from a physiological perspective, is probably an even, I don't want to sound really intense here, but it's a kind of an even worse place to be, because that means that you're feeling nothing, which means you're not really living. You're not alive. There's no aliveness. At least when you feel pain, when you feel sadness, when you feel heartbreak, you're feeling something. There's enough online for you to tolerate, right? But when we're living in nothingness and in numbness, that's probably a really big sign that some work needs to be done to start to reconnect to the body, to reconnect to self.
A lot of people can be feeling that, right? Like, I've been pretty dull or numb, you know, I haven't been able to feel much, not excited about life.
Yeah. And numbness, by the way, is a feeling, right? When we say, I feel numb, it's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
Yeah. But we get to a place of numbness when our feelings outweigh our capacity to be with them at all.
What part of this is just American culture? Like, this is how we live in America. And you've traveled and you've been around.
Yeah.
Like, do other cultures do it like better?
Yeah, I feel like they do. I do talk about that a little bit in the book. I remember I share the story of one of the women that I worked with in Uganda. And you know, there are certain cultures in other parts of the world where they don't have a sense of, you know, indigenous tribes. They don't have a sense of sickness. Like, what do you mean to be sick? What do you mean to not be well? Again, they look at the whole human experience of grief. I mean, there are some places in the world that honor grief. You know, they celebrate grief and loss as a transition into a new life. But they honor our very primal and natural experiences in the body. They honor emotions, but they often don't look at illness as illness. And also they don't really struggle with chronic illness like we do here. I think that we live in this Western world, we live in a very sterile environment, not just from the food that we eat, from the stuff that they put on our foods. I mean, you know, more than anyone, much more than I do, to what we clean our homes with. You know, everything is sterile from a biological perspective, from a physical perspective, but we are also emotionally sterile. And it's not like that in other parts of the world. They're very in tune with not just the nature and the biodiversity of the land that they live on and the food that they eat, but also the nature of the human spirit and emotions and the human experience. I'm getting emotional talking about it. They don't look at it as suffering. You know, they look at it as a gift. And it took me a long time to really get to that place. And I remember what I talk about in the book, going back to Uganda, is I think what I shared was there was this woman, Abina, who had faced some of the worst hardships that life has to offer. Yet she had this like unexplainable joy, like this joy that was just so contagious. And I remember being like, what the hell? You know, like how are you so happy? But she allowed herself to grieve openly. She expressed herself. And so I think that the amount that we allow ourselves to be with our suffering, the amount that we can be with our joy. There's a quote by Joseph Campbell that, you know, joy burns out our pain. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but sometimes I was talking to Ellie about this before he came. I'm like, I feel like everyone it should be required in the United States of America that everyone takes a gap year for 1 year to get outside of this country and to see how the rest of the world lives. They're just so much more in tune with themselves, so much more embodied. Yeah. And they're tethered to nature and the earth and they honor that. Yeah.
I can picture this. What's her name? Your friend?
Abina.
Abina. I can picture that culture being more expressive.
Yeah.
You know, and I come from a Latin culture, and we're more expressive. You know, like if my uncles were angry, they're going to be angry.
Yeah.
You know, but I won't see them cry. They won't cry though. That's the other.
That's where they draw the line.
That's where they draw the line, right?
Yeah.
So like, but I think of other cultures and how connected they are to, you said biodiversity and land and nature. And I've seen it myself in the Amazon. I've seen it. I'm just like, whoa, hold on. that's healthy.
Yeah.
That's what like health looks like.
Yeah.
It's an integrated, holistic approach. It's not that they're like emotions, feelings. They're just like, this is part of the human experience, just like a
Exactly.
waterfall is part of like where we live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all one thing.
They accept it.
They accept it.
Whereas again, for us, we look at our suffering as something to war against, our emotion as something to war against, to resist.
Yeah.
We're always at battle and resisting.
God. Oh my God. How exhausting is that?
It's really exhausting.
I'm tired thinking about doing
know,
that. You know, like the gap year would sound nice. I would love to be with Abina and just be like, teach me our ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's beautiful stuff. You, so you wrote a book.
Yeah.
What's the name of the book?
Body First Healing.
Okay. And what types of stuff are we going to expect in this book?
Yeah. It's a blend of it's a somatic healing roadmap for healing trauma, but it's also not just a trauma book. It's also a book for anyone who has a nervous system, which is all of us. So, but, and then it's also part memoir. So, I remember when I met with my publisher, she said, I feel like your book is going to be the trauma book for the rest of us. I'm a nerd. I love reading science books. I love reading prescriptive books. But when I would recommend those to clients, they'd be like, hey, Britt, I feel like I have to be a therapist or a researcher to really understand this language. And so I wanted to create something that was more relatable.
Yeah.
So my story and the stories of clients that agreed to be a part of this project, those stories are weaved into the book to put a face to it, to put the human touch to it. But yeah, it's a somatic roadmap. So the first half of the book, it's a lot of education, learning about the nervous system, what is trauma, how does it live in the body, what's body memory versus explicit memory, what's attachment, and why does that play such a big role in our nervous system development and who we become as adults. And then the second half of the book is not so much education, but more so experiential. So it's somatic roadmaps for what I call the stuck personalities or the stuck states. Yeah.
The stuck states, which is a lot of us. Okay. Is it out?
It is. It came out at the end of March.
At the end of March. Okay. So what I'm hearing is introduction, but also guidebook. Yeah. We can really open it up and kind of follow it and see which one resonates with us. And
yes. And it's based in somatic experiencing. So it uses a lot of the somatic experiencing approaches to explore how to start getting unstuck from survival mode.
And beautiful. And you put a lot of information out. You got your social media. Yeah. You got your social media friend right there off camera. She accompanied you. She took some good content here. Yeah. What is your social media handle, or where are people going to be able to find more? Because this is really important. This is like, for me, I've been a doctor for 10 years. This is the most important work. Yeah. I wouldn't be saying it if there wasn't. If you asked me 10 years ago, I'd have been like, nutrition. We need to learn more about nutrition. And that matters. But this matters much more. It
all does. Absolutely. Yeah. People can find me on social media at Heal with Britt with 2 T's. Either on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest. I'm looking at Ellie.
You're all over the place.
Yeah.
In the best way. Yeah. You doing TikTok dances in your video?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. I don't do TikTok dances. Back in the day I did, but no.
Okay.
It's been about 5 years. Yeah.
What about family content?
A lot of family content.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So there's, I'd say the content that I provide is educational, relatable. I share a lot about my life and inspirational.
Okay. Those are the best buckets.
Sure.
Go follow everyone and go get the book. Again, what's the name?
Body First Healing.
Body First Healing. I got to tell you, I see you in your work. You know, we're the same cloth or the same tree, if trees have cloth. But like, for real, like this is the real stuff, and I can tell how much you love and have overcome so much of the things that you've had in your past to find purpose. And educating so many people and doing it in a way with compassion and softness is really, really like makes people receptive. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
All right.